Ravi, ma'am is trying to connect through phone. It seems it is not allowing her to join in. So please check that. Ravi, are you there? Amal.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, please tell Ravi. It's resounding because all of you have kept it on there.
Yeah, I am in another room. Ravi in another room.
Yeah, Ravi, tell Ravi that principal madam is joining, but she is not it's showing that they're not allowing her to get in.
Okay.
Tell Ravi to open for her.
Okay, ma'am. Okay.
Ma'am is trying to join. Amal, madam has joined. Our principal ma'am has joined. So we'll start
Yes.
the program.
Shall I? Okay, ma'am. Am I audible?
Yeah.
Okay. Good afternoon to everyone. We are warmly invite you to today's international webinar on second and foreign language acquisition. We are honored to have Associate Professor Rajiv Ranjan sir as our distinguished speaker who will be delivering today's talk. Now I request Dr. Susheel Kumar sir, Chairman, Board of Studies, Department of Linguistics and Convener of the program to deliver the welcome address.
Thank you, Amal. Is it clear? My voice is clear?
Yes, sir.
Today's chief guest, Professor Talas Sultana Ma'am, Principal, University College of Arts and Social Sciences. Vice Principals, Dr. Ram Shepherd and Dr. Balu Naik. Head Department of Linguistics, Dr. C.S. Swathi. And today's speaker, Dr. Rajiv Ranjan, Michigan State University, USA. Students, scholars, and staff of Linguistic Department and dear participants. A warm welcome to you for this international webinar on second and foreign language acquisition. During this academic year, Department of Linguistics, University College of Arts and Social Sciences has been conducting international webinars on various linguistics topics with international speakers. As a convener of this international webinar, I invited my friend Dr. Rajiv Ranjan, Associate Professor, Department of Linguistics, Languages and Cultures, Second Language Studies, Michigan State University, USA, to deliver the talk on second and foreign language acquisition. Second language acquisition is a complex and multifaceted process that has long fascinated professionals across domains, including linguistics, psychology, neurosciences, sociology, and education. Their aims have been to understand how people who already know one language can best learn a second and foreign language. Over time, several theories have been developed to explain the process. Language acquisition is the process by which humans acquire the skill to perceive and comprehend language, as well as to promote and use words and sentences to communicate. Language acquisition involves structures, rules, and representation of language. Furthermore, second language acquisition research contributes to designing language teaching programs, textbooks, curriculum designs, and even the activities in our day-to-day language classroom. Beyond the classroom, people learn languages at all ages in a variety of contexts for several distinct reasons, and they all come at it with different strengths and weaknesses. Second language acquisition research identifies the factors and facilitates to learn second and foreign language. There are so many real-world applications of second and foreign language acquisition. The most important application of second and foreign language acquisition is its role in cross-cultural understanding. Second language acquisition research shows that learning new languages makes us more open to other cultures and broadens our worldview. Today there are many academic journals that are specifically focused on second and foreign language acquisition. The Google Scholar search for academic publications on second language acquisition returns almost 4 million results. This clearly shows the importance of second and foreign language acquisition research. In view of this, the webinar will focus on a couple of theoretical frameworks, namely generative approach and socio-cultural approach to second language acquisition research, and discuss several distinct ways to think about second language acquisition field in general and research in particular. Thank you so much, Raju, for accepting our invitation. Thank you, Amal.
Thank you, sir, for the insightful and warm welcome address. Now I request Dr. C. Swathi Madam, Head of the Department of Linguistics, to address the gathering.
Thank you, Amal. So, a very good afternoon to all and good morning to our speaker. Thank you so much, Dr. Rajiv, for joining us. So, it gives me immense pleasure to welcome you and all the participants to this program. Department of Linguistics was started in 1962 in Osmania University. It's a very old department. We have completed our 60 years of existence, and we have had a lot of stalwarts in the department who have done a lot of research and have been famous worldwide. The department was started as a Tagore Chair, Centenary Chair in 1962, funded by Government of India. And the first chair of the department was Professor B.H. Krishnamurthy Garu. So all of you are aware of his work done by until today. We have his work as the guide for many of our Dravidian languages. In 1977, SAP was instilled in the department, and then we went on to have CAS. And we had last phase in 2013, which was our fourth phase of CAS, which was done under CAS. We had done a lot of programs, seminars, workshops, and programs. The department already also has an alumni, Professor H.S. Anantararan, Professor C. Ramarao, Professor Lakshmi Bai, Professor Aditi Mukherjee, Professor Vasanta, and many more. So we are very proud to inform that one of our alumni, Professor B. Ramakrishna Reddy sir, has received Padma Shri for his work on the tribal languages. So we are a very vibrant department. This department also publishes the journal. We have an in-house journal, which was started in 1975. And currently we have come up with the latest volume, that is in 2022. 49th volume of the journal is also published. And recently, one of our faculty members, Dr. Balu Naik, has got a ICSSR project, major research project. So we congratulate sir and we are happy for him. And our faculty, Dr. Susheel Kumar, has got an RC, that is refresher course in language and linguistics, which will be conducted in January. So some of you who are interested, you can definitely join the program. And in the last 2 years, the department has been doing wonderful work, doing a lot of seminars, workshops, and talks, and also International Mother Tongue Day was very successfully celebrated. World Hearing Day, World Disability Awareness Week, and many more. The faculty has also delivered talks in various forums. So we are very happy to welcome you all for this webinar. And we hope that you have a fruitful learning. Once again, thank you for joining us, Dr. Rajiv. And I'm on my personal behalf, I thank our principal madam, Professor Saida madam. In spite of her busy schedule, she has joined the program. So once again, welcome to you also, ma'am. Thank you for joining us. Over to you, Amal.
Thank you, ma'am, for providing such a wonderful introduction. Next, I would like to invite our Vice Principal, Dr. Ram Shepard, sir, to address the participants.
Sir we'll ask madam to give the address, then maybe sir can give.
Okay. I would like to invite Professor Saida Talat Sultana, Principal and Dean of the Faculty of Arts at the University College of Arts and Social Science, to address the gathering.
Thank you so much. A very good afternoon to all of you. Dear Swathi Madam, Head Department of Linguistics, and Dr. Balu Naik from Department of Linguistics, and so Dr. Susheel Kumar, Department of Linguistics, and the speaker from other country, Dr. Raju, and all the participants and students. A very good afternoon to all. So I am very much happy that Swathi Madam is go on organizing these webinars, such a wonderful webinars. So I congratulate Swathi Madam and her team members of the department and the students. I wish you all the best for your successful webinar. So I'm in the meeting, and I came out from the meeting for 5 minutes. So I can't say anything more, but I congratulate you, and I wish for your I wish is grand success for your webinar. And I must thank to you all giving me this opportunity to have something. Okay.
This
So
webinar
again, I have to.
Thank you, madam. Thank you so much.
So I have to attend this again meeting I have to join this meeting again.
Thank you,
Okay.
madam. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you very much, ma'am, for joining us today and for your valuable time and insightful suggestion. Thank you, ma'am.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. Carry on.
Now I would like to invite Dr. Balu Naik, sir, Vice Principal of the University College of Arts and Social Science, to introduce our esteemed speaker for today, Dr. Rajiv Ranjan, sir.
Good evening, one and all. I would like to introduce today's speaker of this international webinar. Today our speaker, Dr. Rajiv Ranjan, is an associate professor in Department of Linguistics, Language and Culture at Michigan State University at MSU. Rajiv is associate with Asian Studies Program and Master of Arts in Foreign Language Teaching Program. He is also the mentor for the Fulbright Language Teaching Assistant. Before joining MSU, Rajiv Ranjan started as the Graduate Teaching Assistant at the University of Iowa and Iowa City, where he received his PhD in Second Language Acquisition in 2015. Rajiv, primary area of research is generative approach to second language acquisition. His research interests also include socio-cultural approach to SLA, second language acquisition, writing and speaking, language pedagogy, and morphosyntax. He is also an author of 2 OER textbooks, Basic Hindi and Basic Urdu. He also co-authored OER book Hindi and Urdu, Basic Persian and Basic Tamil. Dr. Rajiv completed several projects in language and linguistics. In 2004, Basic Tamil Open Education Resources, Michigan State University Library, and co-authored with Vidya Mohan. In 2024, L2 Hindi, Taught in Interaction in G. Sharma and S. Bhatt. Hindi language teaching, Munich, Germany, Lincom and Europa, ISBN and like. In 2023, Basic Persian Open Education Resources, Michigan State University Library, co-authored with Nahid Shiran. And he received award and honor from from Fulbright Hayes Group Project Abroad Program Curriculum Development Project in collaboration with Yuva Hindi Santan, INC, US Department of Education 2000, and International Research and Studies grant from the International and Foreign Language Education Office, Department of Education, USA project titled LCT and OER collaboration, enhancing language teaching through OER language textbook development. And there are so many projects, awards, and honors of Dr. Rajiv Ranjan, but due to the time constraint, I am skipping his academic achievements. And now I hand over to the session to the Dr. Rajiv for the talk. Thank you, sir. Thank you so much.
Dr. Rajiv, just 1 minute.
Yeah.
I think what we will do is, Ravi, are you ready? Can we have all the participants on video so that we can just take a photo for documentation purpose? If you permit, Dr. Rajiv.
Yes, please.
Yeah. So Ravi, kindly take screenshots because we have around 98 participants who have joined, and I'm seeing that there are 11 in the queue. So I hope they join by this one. So participants, dear participants, kindly come on to the video mode because this is an online webinar. So we would like to see you. So just for some 2-3 minutes so that we can take a screenshot. Yeah, thank you all for joining. And I see that there are a lot of people from other countries. So this is truly an international webinar. Ravi, once you finish, kindly let us know. Dr. Susheel's video is gone. Yeah. I think your students also joined Dr. Rajiv from your college.
No, ma'am, it's 6 a.m. in the morning. They will kill me if I ask them to
Okay,
join
okay,
at 6 a.m.
okay.
Actually, now it's almost 7, but the time zone is crazy.
Yeah, yeah,
And
I can understand.
right. And
Okay,
typically I
done,
teach,
Ravi? Ravi, is it done?
Mhm. And I teach only 3 days. So Tuesday and Thursday is not my teaching days. So I teach Monday,
Okay.
Wednesday, and Friday.
Yeah, I think we have done.
Mhm. All
Yes,
right.
ma'am, we are done with the photos.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you, Dr. Rajiv. You can start.
Thank
We are
you.
waiting for your talk.
Thank you so much, ma'am. Let me get started. And people, if you want to stay online so that, like the Zoom teaching since COVID and this webinar, it always feels like I'm talking to a black hole, which I'm just looking at some red dots in the camera and hoping that people are not annoyed by my talk or not getting mad at me. But so if you can keep your video open so that I have some sort of a reference and facial expression, like if you are enjoying it or you are just totally annoyed, I can cut it short based on how the public reaction is going to be. But before I start, let me thank Osmania University Department of Linguistics, not just the principal ma'am, but every faculty, members of faculty, student team, Ravi, who has been in my contact, my Anna, Susheel Anna, who we go back way back. I think we met first time in 2008 when I was an MPhil student and with Susheel Anna at English and Foreign Language University. That was the time when it became IFLU from CIFL. I did my MPhil research there. And then after my MPhil research in 2010, I moved to America. And so we go like at least 16, 17 years. So we have grown old together. Susilana, you are always welcome to America. We'll grow old together here sometime too. So thanks everyone. Thanks for joining, all the scholars, the student participants. And today I'm going to give a little bit of my idea about second or foreign language acquisition. And I hope that I provoke you enough that you become an active participant in this comparatively newer field. Um, before I start my talk and share my screen with you all, let me say why SLA or why foreign language acquisition. I was through and through theoretical linguistics students. I did my undergraduate from Patna University, which you know in Bihar, in English literature, where I started learning English at 6th grade under a tree in Jharkhand. And by the 4, 5, 6 years, I'm reading Shakespearean English, and I have no idea why Shakespearean English is taught in the first year of English literature in my university. And I decided myself, my father was a truck driver. I didn't have anybody from a family background who could have guided me in a right direction. But one thing they all said in Bihar, English and maths, if you're good at that, you will do something good about your life. So I thought, okay, maths I'm never going to be good at, but maybe English I can try. So I tried English and I pathetically failed, not able to understand que sera sera or to be or not to be. And in 3 years, I decided this is not my cup of tea. And so I jumped on linguistics. So I joined Delhi University. I was rejected by JNU, but I was accepted by Delhi University and BHU and Jamia Millia Islamia, and I decided DU is the place. I went to DU, did my master's, and I understand that in English language, WH word moves. So if I have to say, my name is, or your name is Byram, I know my Baram Bhai is here. He is also a faculty at University of Michigan. These days he is in India. So I'm just using him as a reference. So your name is Baram, and in English you have to say your name is what? And then you have to move what in the beginning, and then you have to do this, the auxiliary subject inversion. So you have to move is, and then you say what is your name. Cool. I love it. So what? what am I gonna do with this knowledge? How I'm gonna teach this to somebody like me who is either A, mind is chasing my goat so that it doesn't graze the other farm, or learn some English or handling the Shakespeare English. So lo and behold, cutting the long story short, I said, so how am I going to make the good use of this information that WH word moves in English? And hence, when I came to, and then not only that, I came to Hyderabad in Osmania campus. We have, thanks to Osmania, and that it has hosted, he flew there in the campus right across the street. And I did MPhil in a still theoretical linguistics, and my topic was ergative case in Hindi Urdu, and which, if you don't know what ergative case is, it's basically in Hindi when you say ne. Rajiv ne kaha ki, and that ne has been very exciting for me. And then I continued doing my PhD in second language acquisition. And I thought, how did I teach my foreigners here learning Hindi as a second or foreign language that ne, because ne has no meaning. Kutta is dog, billi is cat. What does ne mean? And if something is not, something is semantic, there's no semantic value, there's a meaningless, why do you learn? For example, all of us as an Indian, when we speak English, including myself, we make lots of mistakes in article the. And the reason that it has no meaning for us, because in my language, at least in Hindi and Urdu, there's no sense of definiteness. It's a sense of specificity. And hence we use ko to make something specific, but we don't have idea of specificity, definiteness, and hence we still struggle. And I have been rightly pointed out that I'm fossilized in article the. So if you are speaking, if you're listening to my talk, and if you are judging me that, hey, Rajiv's English is not so cool, he makes mistakes, be my guest and criticize me, and I'm open for that. And criticize my thoughts too. So with this like kind of a narrating, I wanted to put the pasamanjar or background or prishtbhumi that where I'm coming from. Now, let me start sharing screen and give you a little bit of an idea what I believe what SLA is. So everybody, I hope, can see the screen. I'm gonna do in a cool. Okay.
Yes, sir, it's visible.
Perfect. Thank you. So let me start with this idea. What is second language or foreign language acquisition? And it's the question that for last, I would say, 50 plus years, we all have been changing, and we are, I mean, you see this picture that how blind men or bunch of blind people are trying to figure out what the elephant is. Is it a spear? Is it a fan? Is it a snake or a wall or a tree or a rope? And everybody who is doing or kind of trying to understand what is second or foreign language theories or acquisition, or sometimes people, my own graduate students ask, so Rajiv, what's the best way to teach a language, or what's the best way to learn a language? And this question, inshallah, hopefully one day I'll be able to answer, but not right now, and nobody can. And that's the beauty of this field, that you can still have a very revolutionary, crazy idea, and you still have a place in this field. No theoretician is coming and saying, oh, you do not know minimalism of syntax, and hence you are wrong. Or this node doesn't work, your parameter is impaired, so you cannot work on that. Today, if any one of my 100 friends, those who are joined, I can see on this participant, and you say what is SLA, and that probably would be right, because it's your idea of SLA. Right. So I mean, it's not that wild. There are still some system in this madness, but this is how it is, the best way I can describe. But we are trying to do what I'm trying to in this talk, and in a limited time that we have, I'm going to talk about something. Think of a language and acquisition of a language, whether it is second or foreign. You can look at it in three different ways. One is a structuralist way, bottom up, and one is a top down, and everything in middle. So think of this. I'm going to repeat myself one more time, just for the sake of audience. I'm thinking about language acquisition from bottom up and top down. So if you think of generative approach of SLA, Chomskyan framework, and theoretical linguistics, it's a bottom up. starts with the vocabulary, letters, sentences, syntax, and hopefully you will be able to speak. And then the other is a top-down kind of a socio-culture, which is not about the language acquisition, it's about human learning. When a child or when we as an adult learn something, how do we learn? And it is believed that language is one of those cognitive ability which can be learned that way. And in bottom up and top down, whatever comes in middle. So that's where we are. And hopefully towards the end, I'll give you the implication of this in terms of methodology of language teaching. And I want to spend like 2 minutes, what's the future of this field in our current India, where we are fifth largest economy. Australia has just published a news that India is the third powerful country in Asia, and all the positive narrative that you are seeing, and everybody has their own silver lining of that, right? So if I'm in America, I have a different view of India, and if you are in other country, you might have another view of India. But the view of SLA should not go away. And India, if today wants to be a skilled India, language is a skill, language teaching is important, then why this theory and why this department webinar is important for us to join, and hopefully that in India we jump on a right path to skill India in terms of not only language learning, but also language teaching and research and publications. So wish me luck. Here I go. Some of the common question. What is SLA and what's the difference between second and foreign language? So SLA is a field. I do not have to spend much time there, but the second question is more important before we embark on this journey. When we think of a second language, meaning we are trying to learn a language in a classroom which is spoken outside of the classroom too. So for example, English language is considered a second language in India, because if you're learning English in any institution, whether at a college or private tuition or a coaching institute that we see in India, spoken English in 4 months, you're speaking English. I wonder if I can hire them and give me the capsule that they are teaching. In 4 months, they are making people speak language. That is amazing. And then foreign language is a language, if you're trying to learn, which is not spoken in that country. So for example, if you're trying to learn Chinese or French or German or Korean, Tibetan, Vietnamese, Hmong, Indonesian in India, then it is a foreign language because you have only exposure to that language within that four wall of a classroom, and outside you don't have much exposure. Now, given that we live in an artificial intelligence world, and the internet and a movie and YouTube videos and TikTok and Tinder, not Tinder, but TikTok and all, you might have lots of exposure to that language, but at least you do not have a one-on-one human interaction. And that makes it foreign. So that, I hope that definition is clear. Now, the question is, and now when I'm using the word second, please know that I'm using it as an umbrella term for second and foreign. Is second language acquisition similar to the first language acquisition? And the answer cannot be an absolute, because some part of second language does look like a first language, and some part of a second language does not look like a second language. And if I may say that why I'm saying that there are evidence that people like me who is speaking English with you all, and I hope I'm audible, comprehensible, you can all understand me. So I'm one example that yes, I learned English as a second language, but is my English good enough like a native speaker of English? So if I'm not good enough like a native speaker of English, then is it like my Maghi, which is my native tongue from Bihar, and Hindi is my second language, or Urdu is my another Masi? So what I'm trying to say that the answer is not absolute. Is it 100% like L1 or first language? No. Is it 100% like a foreign language? No. I mean, you can still learn something, and we'll talk a little bit about that. But here's the question for you as a teacher, that when you teach a language, what do you teach? So if you, this is a big crowd, so we do not have much attention and time to involve the participant, but if I can say a couple of things to kind of share your thought. Well, when I teach language, I teach grammar. If you teach English, what do you teach? Today, I'm going to do the habituality of or aspect, not tense, aspect. Tense is different than aspect, right? Today, we are going to focus on vocabulary. Today, we are going to focus on reading or writing. But is this, as a whole, it's not a language. You're looking at certain skills. And now we are in the era of human to human interaction, because language pedagogy is very much like politics. So I'll show you towards the end of my talk that how the pedagogy is very much affected by the politics or geopolitics of the world. Okay, so you can understand that what is considered a good method of language learning based on what was the need of the time, and hence we move on. So this is a question for you all as a teacher, that when you teach a language, let's say, Rajiv, you teach Hindi. Yes. What do you teach? Hindi. But what makes Hindi a Hindi language? What do I teach? Today, if I'm going to teach in a class, what's my lesson plan? What I'm going to do in the class? Is grammar a language? Is only vocabulary a language? How do I make a balance, and how do I still make people learn the language or acquire the language? And then linguistic versus communicative competence. And this is one thing I felt like, I mean, my humble experience of language learning and teaching in India. And please note that for 14 years, I have been away from my wonderful motherland, which is sad. But maybe in 14 years, if something had changed, I'll be very proud and happy. But I still see that language, like if people are going to English language coaching center, they're still trying to pass the UPSC or NET exam, the prelims or grammar question or banking or PO or railway or that sorts of thing. That gives a linguistic competence. Me from Bihar, which I'm very proud of, people say, "Arey yaar, I understand everything. I can do all the grammatical errors. But when it comes to speaking, I cannot speak my English. Or I struggle in speaking English, but I can do all the grammar questions." And that's where the difference is. The linguistic competence is different than the communicative competence, right? So if in the current world, when we are thinking about the foreign and second language acquisition, we are thinking in terms of competence, communicative competence, rather than a linguistic competence. If I say my friend here, Amal, get up early in the morning and she drink coffee, and then she get ready, and then she go to school, and then she study, and then she torture her teachers, and then she come home and drink some chai, and then she cook dinner, and then she read books, and then she sleeps. And think about that. Everything I said about Amal, you all understood. But each and every sentence that I spoke was ungrammatical, right? So maybe my linguistic competence is not very good, but my communicative competence was amazing. I communicated with you all, and you didn't have any problem in understanding. I'm talking about Amal. That's the person. I'm talking about her daily routine. I shared all the meaning. Only thing I didn't do is added S with all the verbs, because Amal as a subject is third person singular subject, which in English language requires S with the verb, which I didn't, but I was able to communicate, right? So where is the need, and what's the need of the current world? So now thinking goes on. Theories, I'm sure you have heard the behaviors theory, which I call the army theory. And I'm very proud to say that when Pablo's came with the theory, like, hey, look, every single time I ring the bell, the Pablo's dogs salivate. And I wondered that maybe Pablo's dog was thinking, look, every single time I salivate, Pablo's rings the bell. Whose behavior is, whose stimulus is, whose response, I don't know. But that was an army method. Cadets, at 500 hours, you have to appear on this Zoom meeting. I Captain Susheel, I'm here, I'm giving a talk. This is a behavioral response, right? A stimulus response. But was it good? It's an imitation. Like the child when say, bolo beta, ma, and then the child say ma, papa, dada, nana, and this is the imitation, like parroting. But if that's the way second language is learned, but that's the baby that have a very clean slate, but our mind is already filed with my first language. I do this experiment, you all, that I ask my I mentor Fulbright language teaching assistant from 14 different countries. And I ask, how does rooster sound in your language? So Indian would say kukuruku. Spanish would say kikriki. Chinese would say kuku kuku. Some other country will say bizarre things. For example, dog in India sounds like bhaw bhaw, but in America it sounds like woof woof. Rooster in America sounds like cockle doodle doo. Is that the rooster different? Do you think the chicken in India tastes differently than chicken in America? No, the chicken is chicken, but it's our first language which is guiding us to hear it differently. So why we are hearing it differently? Because we are already primed by our first language. It's not chicken's problem or dog's problem. It is our first language problem that we are not able to hear the dog or the rooster in that sound that they are producing. We are already primed with that, our own preconceived language. So if second language is based on like the imitation like a baby, then what we are going to do with our first language, and is it the help or is it the hinder? Those are the questions. Structuralist, finite set of a predictable pattern. That's how they think that the language is just a finite set of rule. So it's Chomskyan idea. But yes, we all are a grammar learner. And we linguists are weird sort of a people. Like Department of Linguistics is a bunch of weird people. You ask any random human in anywhere in the world, do you like reading? Yeah. What do you love to read? Fiction, non-fiction, history, autobiography. Tell me one human that say, oh, I love reading grammar. Only the people like us and the Department of Linguistics friends can say like, oh, we love reading grammar. We are weird. We love grammar. How crazy is that? There's no fun in that, but that's our kind of fun. And I own that, being a applied or theoretical linguist or a student of that field rather than a teacher. Now, if you think of there are a bunch of other theory like creative construction hypothesis, monitor model that I'll discuss, generative approach, usage-based approach, input processing, input interaction and output, sociocultural theory, skill acquisition theory. This is not all. This is not the exhaustive list, but my slide can only contain this much. And I know that we do not have much time, so I just give you a peek view. Today, I hope to give you a little bit idea that what is like the monitor model and the generative and socioculture, and in between the bottom up and top down, you will see that this input and interaction and output would come to play. Some fundamentals. Learning is teaching and learning is not acquisition. Listen to me one more time. Learning is not acquisition. So when I teach this course called Instructed Second Language Acquisition, and we ask if learning, right, can be done by teaching, but learning is not acquisition, then why we need a job of a teacher to teach a language? If you cannot make your student acquire a language, then what's your job good for? Now, what's the difference between learning and acquisition? Learning is a conscious process. Acquisition is not. So today, if I teach, let's say, to express completed action in English language, and you say like, you go with the perfective aspect and you say, I went there, I did this, I cooked dinner, I ate dinner, I watched TV, and tomorrow you can give a test, it would be great. So you taught something, you test something, you saw that your student made a mistake, you teach again. So this is a very good model of a TTT model of language teaching. Teach, test, teach. But will that help them acquire the perfective aspect in English? And the answer is no. Because acquisition cannot be taught. Acquisition has to have an incidental, and it based on everyone's cognitive level. And think of your classroom. If you have let's say 10 students, which is impossible in Indian context. You have hundreds of students in every classroom, right? Everybody has a different cognitive juice, different cognitive ability, different sort of a background. Some of their parents might speak English, so they have a little bit of a background there. Some of them are good reader, they are reading books, or some of them come from my sort of a background where nobody is even college graduate in my family, where I don't have any exposure to that. And then all these 100 students will learn the language differently, and their incidental acquisition can happen in different ways and different time. Right. So when we are thinking about second language acquisition, it's a whole different ball game when you are thinking about the second language learning and teaching. Okay. But to answer some of that, to just give you like, oh, Rajiv, then why we have a job? Let me give you a little idea why we have a job, that if we can make the learning kind of playful, to suppress the anxiety, to keep the motivation up, and we can cross our finger that we can kind of the outcome of teaching in a wonderful way may help to have that incidental thing happen in a probable better and faster ways. And this is just the best we can do as a language teacher, and this is what best a language learner can do to get the language acquired, not just learned. Now, second fundamentals of this SLA is a natural order. So English language, I can see that here, even in this talk, I'm sure like all of you, if not 100%, 90% of you are an English language learner or English language teacher, or if you're doing a linguistic research, it's mostly about English, 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 English. English is the most spoken, most taught, most researched language of the world. And people say that there's a natural order when you are acquiring an English language. So if you teach, I mean, think of this, just giving an example. All the time we teach our student, third person singular needs the verb plus S or ES. And I can guarantee you that people, those who live in America, London, Canada, or English spoken world, after 40 years, 50 years, they still make that mistake. They will say, Amla eat, Amal eat, Amal drink. They forget S or ES. So if there is a natural order, we teach them fairly early when we are teaching English. Why after 30, 40, 50 years living in a foreign country or English spoken country where English is not a foreign language, English is just the first language out there, or out here, if I say, we are still making that mistakes. So if we know the natural order of English language, can we teach in that order? That's the first thing. Second, is it true that the natural order of English is natural order of Telugu? If you're teaching Telugu as a second or foreign language, my Telugu friend Afsar Muhammad, who teaches at UPenn, we are just coming out with the basic Telugu book of open education resources. But the natural order of English will not work for Telugu. It will not work for Persian. It will not work for any world language, because every language is little different than the other. And hence, we need more research to figure out if the acquisition happens in a certain natural way, then what's the natural order of each and every language that we are trying to acquire. Next is monitor model. So think of a language that you have an input, you have eyes and ear. You are listening to me. What you are doing, you are using your eyes to read my slide, and you are using your ears to listen to my chutney-fied Indian English. And then you are doing something in this black hole, or like what do you call that? The magic box that the God has given us, head, brain. And then maybe you will go and talk today with your friends on a chai after this talk, like, oh my God, such a waste of 1 hour. Rajiv just cooked us, or it's such a bad conversation. He has no idea what SLA is. That's your output. And you are going to use your mouth or maybe hand. You will write a report or you will write a message to me. That's your output. And it's fairly simple, right? But why, if somebody say like, hey, if you're trying to learn English, just watch news or watch English movie, read English newspaper. But the brain, then if we do that input, then why do we not have that much output? Because your brain needs a couple of things. And what brain needs is, first, when you hear input, 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 it makes some sort of statistical rule in the head. For example, a child who doesn't start speaking. Child has lots of competence. They listen. They're making some sort of statistical analysis that what pattern is occurring, what words are mostly used. then they also need time to process that information. And then you will have to focus on how or what are you saying. So think of an Indian context when we teach English in India. What's the goal? Not what are you saying, but how you are saying. So all the exams, bank POs and stuff, it's not about the fluency, it's about the accuracy. And if you make a mistake in English language, or if you're learning French or Japanese, I don't know how many languages you all are learning, a wonderful bunch of people here. But then you are struggling when you make a mistake and somebody points out, like, what do you think? Should you not use S with eats if you're saying Amal eats breakfast? Like, oh my God, yes, I know the rule, right? Because you are not focused on how to say that, but what I was focused in what I'm saying. I'm trying to share someone's daily routine. But once you give us the pointer that look how you are saying, then the brain goes on a grammar, right? How I'm saying this. That's why when you write to your first research paper or any article, you want some other pair of eyes to look at it, because they're not focused on what you are saying, they're focused on how you are saying. And my PhD advisor, Alice Davison, she passed away. Alice always said, Rajiv, always read your paper backward. Because when you are reading a paper backward, you are not focused on what you are saying, but how you are saying, right? So then affective filters is the another thing that comes in play. Like, let's say that you listen to something, or my teacher is teaching me something, and I'm thinking like, oh my God, I cannot do this. My motivation is down, my self-esteem is down. I'm anxious. Oh my God, now after teaching this, he's going to test me, or he's going to send me in front of everybody and ask me to talk about my daily routine. And, my identity, look how ugly I look. Oh, look, today I have a bad hair day, or I didn't use my best kameez or shirt today because I'm giving this webinar. I'm scared. Oh my God, am I able to say this? Am I going to impress everybody, or everybody's going to hate me? I don't know. And I'm listening, you are listening to my talk, but think, oh my God, Rajiv asked us to keep the video open. Am I looking handsome? Am I wearing the nice shirt? What does he think about me? And say, what did you learn today? You didn't learn anything, my friend, because your affective filter is bombarded by the motivation, anxiety, low self-esteem. Maybe you don't like my face, like why this Indian looking dude lives in America and why he's giving us a lecture. I don't know. I don't know. But the point here is, if you're learning a language, these all matter. And that's why we try to have a classroom which is very congenial, that we don't have to have a classroom like an Atlas complex. The teacher comes on the stage and says, today, I'm going to teach you habitual, right? That's like a Hitler method, or the theoretically it's called Atlas complex, that a one man is having the whole Atlas on the head. In a language classroom, we want to see in a semicircle or the circle where every participant, including teacher as a participant, has to see each other's face. We kind of do those things so that affective filter is minimized, so that the input which is going can go to the brain and process it, and hopefully some output. Couple of other points one more point in the fundamentals is input and intake. So if, let's say, my friend, and I don't want to keep going to Baram Bhai and Amal, it's like, why you're focused on me? Let's say we have Ravi, who's very kind and organizing all this, and Raviana wants to learn Japanese. And say, Raviana, it's easy peasy. Just watch Japanese movie. I'm sorry, I'm not making fun of Japanese language, and I don't know Japanese. So I'm just going to say, like, he watched Japanese movies for 10 hours. Did he learn any Japanese? Will he be able to learn any Japanese? Probably not. Because input is not enough. If input is not given in a comprehensible manner, which is why it is called intake, then that input is good for nothing. I can watch 5 years of Chinese movie, and other than saying ni hao, maybe I won't be able to say anything in Chinese. So input is not good enough. input has to be comprehensible. So comprehensible input is called intact. And when we talk about the class and monitor model, it says I plus 1. I is your internal language, or the what you know already, plus 1. The question is, how do you know that each of your student has what level of I? So when you are teaching language, what plus 1 are you going to add? Because everybody is different, right? So these are the little bit of a fundamentals. I know that I do not have much time. Let's quickly take a look at the generative approach to SLA. Generative approach really believes in syntax and the notes that the human brain creates. And I love this cartoon. If you are, because I know in India, and the reason I chose this methodology, because I know that many universities in India, there is a department of linguistics and there is a syntax teacher who scared me too. So if you are scared of syntax, don't be. It looks like a scary picture. But if you're ever interested in syntactic or Chomskyan or generative approach of second language acquisition, this Lydia White red book, I made fun of Lydia, like, hey, your name is Lydia White, but your book is so red. Why? I mean, so she's an amazing scholar. And this is kind of a Bible if you are trying to look at the generative approach of SLA. It's a textbook. So if you are teaching generative approach of SLA, if you're a professor of SLA in India, or you want to look at the SLA from the generative approach, this is a good book for you. They're not paying me anything, but I have this book in somewhere here, some red book of Lydia White. Okay. What generative approach says that generative approach of SLA is looking for the linguistic competence, not performance. So competence is what you know and performance is what you can do. So if I ask you, all of you understand my English, and if I ask anyone here in this room that, hey, can you give me the 50 verbs in English? All of you understand English. All of you understand kind of communicating. And you say, yeah, Rajiv. But after 25, 30, maybe 35, you say, oh my God, I don't know any English verb. It doesn't mean that you don't know 50 verbs. You are not able to perform it, but it is in your competence. So competence is like the soaking foam, and you soak lots of water, and performance is when you squeeze it, the water comes down. But the generative approach is not looking for any oral performance or communication or the performance or proficiency. What it's saying that, do you have enough competence in the target language, right? Then it also look at the interlanguage and like if you're ever doing a research on a generative approach of SLA, what you are looking at, what's your data, what's your gold mine, is interlanguage. And I'll talk about it in a little bit, but more about interlanguage. And it's also looking not how much you're speaking, but what it is looking that what's the mental representation of the first language or the second language in your head, not out in the wild. Like you say, I studied English for 8 years. And when I first came to America, nobody said, how are you? I'm fine, thank you, and you. They memorized me this phrase, like, hey, how do you say, like in English, you say, hello, my name is Rajiv Ranjan. How are you? And then somebody would say, I'm fine, thank you. And you? Then you will say, I'm fine, thank you too. Or something, something, something. And I memorized this, my friends. And I came here and everybody say, how are you? And just keep going. Because in America, how are you doesn't mean that question. It's in America, how are you means hi. So when somebody says, how are you to you in America, you simply say, how are you? Or hi. And I said, somebody said, how are you? And I stood like, son, my name is Rajiv Ranjan. I'm fine, thank you. And you? And they all laughed at me like, what English are you speaking? So maybe my competence was great. My Chomskyan was getting great in my head. But when it comes to performance, like I'm doomed. Can't speak English. I wasted my 10 years in India, did linguistics theory, but I can't speak to my friends in America. My English is so poor. That's grammar did to me, right? So again, but this is a theory. Now, interlanguage is what is produced by let's say that one of you is learning English or your students are learning English. The language that they produce is called interlanguage, and their language would be mixed of many ideas, which is not complete English, but it's not complete non-English. So there would be some element of English. So interlanguage is a mixture of what a learner is trying to, what they spoke, but it has a feature. It might have just the universal grammar in a head. So if you know what is universal grammar in a Chomskyan framework, that there is a language acquisition device in a human brain and which has a universal grammar. And then everything is activated by that universal grammar. So input goes here, universal grammar cooks it, and then Valhalla, you got the language, That's the, very rough idea. Don't quote me, go read universal grammar. Is it just the L1? First language, when you are learning your second language, is it just informed by the first language? Is it both universal grammar and first language cooked together? Or it is just what you are teaching to your student is just the target language? Or is it the mixture of universal grammar, first language, and the second language all cooked together? Or it is totally wild? And you would be surprised that when you are learning a foreign language, the interlanguage, the language that you spoke, has trace of first language, trace of second language, trace of some universal grammar, or it can also be sometimes totally wild. You cannot trace it, like why that person has made this error. It doesn't exist in the first language. It doesn't exist in a second language. Then why this kind of mistakes are being done? So error analysis sort of study gives a good peak view that the interlanguage could also be very wild. Now, if you look at the role of L1 in second language acquisition, people sometimes reject it. They said, no, first language never works. So if I'm trying to learn, let's say English, my Hindi doesn't work. Hindi has no contribution at all. But sometimes people have idea that no, L2, my English is being learned by my L1 Hindi. So I know some rules in Hindi and I'm going to apply that rule while I'm learning the second language or foreign language. And then sometimes said wild interlanguage grammar, meaning it could be just not L1 or L2. It's just something that universal grammar can cook up or something that your brain makes. So that's the role of a L1. And that's why I'm giving you these authors and their year. So there is a research on all these authors and years that I'm writing. You can look at their references and find the research based on this hypothesis. The access to universal grammar also have three hypotheses. People also argue that there's no access to the universal grammar when you are learning a second or foreign language because the UG is only accessible when you are learning your first language at a critical period of child, 0 to 5 years old. And once you are 5 years after, it's not a switch, but the fluidity of the universal grammar. People generally say when you grow older, it is hard to learn a new language. And that's kind of the idea that the second language has no universal grammar. Another hypothesis is direct access to UG. That's even for the second language, universal grammar is there. And then the third idea or hypothesis that indirect access to the universal grammar through L1. So universal grammar is available, but it's through your first language, not directly to the target language. So all the grammar that you are learning in English has to be accessed in a universal grammar, but what exists in your first language, in my case, Hindi. So I'm always trying to look at the Hindi to understand the grammar of the second language. Now, at the initial stage, there is the initial hypothesis of syntax and full access hypothesis, which, the idea is basically first language and second language is identical, UG is there, and you have no problem. It's like the first language. The full access hypothesis says that interlanguage is UG constrained at all stages. So everything has to be done with the universal grammar. But if you look at the universal grammar from L1, meaning via L1, that you have a universal grammar, but it's always through your first language, then there are a couple of hypotheses like full transfer and full access. So if you're learning English, whatever rule you can match with your first language, like Hindi, in my case, or Telugu, or whatever, Malayalam, Kannada, Bhojpuri, Gujarati, Punjabi, whatever language you speak, they match 1 and 1. And whatever the feature that doesn't match, then the English language, to learn English language, you go to the universal grammar. So that kind of idea is also there. Now, the Chomsky linguistics or linguistics or syntax has moved from that universal grammar to the principle and parameters And there are a couple of hypotheses about parameters, that they are breakdown in parameters, or there's an interlanguage grammar are also unimpaired. So they say, like, when you are learning English, there is no parameter. You have only principle maybe through UZ, but there is no parameter. And then the other, within that idea, there is a local breakdown, that you have parameters, but that parameter has no value. There's no physical manifestation of those nodes. The other sort of a people, Hawkins and all, you can see that no parameter setting, only L1 parameter settings are exemplified in interlanguage grammar. When you are learning foreign language, that there is no parameter. And then the White, like the Lydia White, that the book we are referencing, they say parameter can be reset. So it's not necessarily that you have to transfer the parameter, but it can be reset, which can be distinct or which can be different from the first language. So if I'm learning English, I can reset my parameter, which is not like the first language, so that's her philosophy. These are all hypotheses. Please know that in any research, like in any scientific research, there's no absolute answer. There's always a hypothesis, and these are all just the hypotheses. Very quickly, if I can so then the syntax moved from the principle and parameter to the minimalism, and within minimalism, we have uninterpretability hypothesis, feature assembling hypothesis, and interface. I just want to spend a little bit time on interpretability hypothesis. What it says, that when you are learning a second language, the uninterpretable feature, the feature which has no meaning, I gave you my dissertation, my PhD dissertation is on acquisition of ergative case marker, in second language or foreign language, Hindi and Urdu. As the ne is just a functional unit, it cannot be learned, or it is hard to learn, because this is not, it doesn't have a semantic value. And that's the idea. But then everybody learns it. So then what do you need? You make it salient, you make it more, give a little bit more practice, and hopefully you can, or that require more time to be acquired. Sometimes the minimalism, because minimalism is not talking about principle and parameter, it's only talking about features. So the other Lardier and all, they think that no, the features, when you're learning English from your first language, the features can be reassembled. It can be packaged in it is packaged in your first language, and it can be repackaged for the second language. So I mean, this is, but one thing before I move to socioculture for another 5-7 minutes, I'm looking at the time. If you look at the generative approach of SLA, it's very bottom up. Features, nodes, parameter, vocabulary, grammar, right? It's not talking about language in a holistic way. So let's say that for example, I know Persian grammar because I work with Nahid, my co-author of Persian language. I know grammar, but I have no idea how to speak Persian. No, I can read Persian because I can read Urdu script or Nastaliq. So I'm very good at that. But I know a little bit of Arabic grammar, because as a linguist, we know the grammar. We know the world grammar. At least we can predict as a trained linguist. But it doesn't mean I can speak Arabic or Indonesian or Persian or Chinese. So is the grammar, is that nodes and features are language acquisition, or it is just generative approach is trying to understand how the competence is built in how the language is going to be wired in your head, rather than what is being produced out in the wild. So that's the one theoretical framework. And nobody says bad or good. If you are interested in that, go ahead. Good luck, my friend. Do that research. Here is another top-down socioculture. Socioculture it came in light with the very later Vygotsky. He was never celebrated, but when he passed away, and then his Russian work got translated in English, and then he came in the light. And what basically he's saying, that the language, please also know that the theory Vygotsky explained is not specific to the language acquisition. It's the theory of the bigger overall human learning. And then people of a SLA, or the second language acquisition people, is being inspired by his philosophy of learning, and then they're trying to apply it to the language. There are what his couple of main idea is that everything is acquired through mediation and regulation. So let's say you have a baby who wants a toy or a doll, and they look at the doll and they connect with that. That's the doll. I want doll. And then mama and papa and fruit like apple and banana, and everybody, all of you have been exposed to baby, and you know that when they have a mediation, certain sort of artifacts, they learn that faster. And that's why you will see that in kids' room, there are lots of toys which has a different bus, train, names of fruits, and all those things are written, because before they internalize it, let's say object regulation. So let's say a baby is learning the word apple. They look at the apple toy or apple, real apple. That's the object regulation. But then the mom or a caregiver says, baby, hi, this is apple, seb hai. And that's the other regulation that is a teacher or expert is giving. And then the baby, which is a language learner, is doing a private speech or saying, apple. So after maybe 5 times showing apple, saying apple, maybe the baby would say apple. So that's kind of the regulation and mediation. And it is also like the symbolic tool. So any behavior or any learning is first outwardly and then inward. Let's say that you all are listening to me. Right now, your learning is very outwardly. I'm saying things, maybe some of the points you are very cool about, some of the things you agree, some of the things you're not agreeing with me. But at least this conversation is provoking some of your thoughts, some ideas, and then you are internally thinking about it. So as everything, learning happens through the social mediation, through the talking to the people, and that's how the language acquisition is believed to be. So that's why the interaction in a socioculture, not just teach grammar, but the interaction becomes more important. And it also had this idea, what we call ZPD for short, zone of proximal development. And what we believe in the language teaching, that think what your learner can do by themselves. Then the second layer is what they can do with your little help, and what they cannot do at all, even with your help, right? So that's how actually there is I co-supervised a student at JNU, and she was doing Tamil speakers learning Hindi as a second language, and she worked on this feedback from most implicit feedback towards the most explicit feedback, and she worked within this theoretical framework called zone of socioculture, and she used the zone of proximal development as a theoretical framework or socioculture, or she used this one. Okay, some of the common misconception is zone of proximal development is not scaffolding. Scaffolding is like you just help. But maybe zone of proximal development could be different for different people. Let's see that when you are asking your students to say something, and that person is like, Amal, eat breakfast. And say, Amal, eat? Oh, no, Amal eats. So you are not giving 100% feedback like, look, Amal is the third person singular. You have to use S or ES. No, you are just highlighting. And this is the different ways of giving a feedback, implicit feedback towards the most explicit feedback. And that's how you know what's the zone of proximal development, what a student can do by themselves, what they can do with the little to no help towards from the teachers or experts or interlocutors. And if I say, yeah, Amal eat, yeah. You remember that verb needs the S or ES when the third person singular? What? That's the third layer when students cannot even do with the help, like what you are trying to do. So that's something different from a scaffolding. Zone of proximal development focus on quality, whereas scaffolding is on quantity. And then I+1. Krashen monitor model says that I+1, internal language and add little bit more, but the zone of proximal development is not looking for the universal I or universal +1. It is saying that each individual has a different zone of proximal development, and zone of proximal development is the nature of dialogue between learner and expert. It's a communicative more in that nature. Okay, some of the pedagogical implications. Generative has no pedagogical implications. So if you are working on the research or theoretical aspect of generative approach of SLA, you cannot give, or you do not have to give any pedagogical implication. It focuses on linguistic competence. It's a language, it is an abstract idea. It's focused on grammar, language knowledge, and mostly done explicitly. Whereas if you look at the sociocultural thing, it's more communicative competence. Language is a social construct. It's not abstract. It's not in your head, but it's in a society. Focus on completing a task. So the task-based language teaching comes to mind, like when you are in these days in a communicative approach, we are using TBLT. Language is mostly used, and the language is learned mostly through the implicit sort of instruction. Very quickly, SLA research and SLA teaching. No SLA researcher, like look at the language teacher, not just English language teacher, but the Russian language teacher, Spanish language teacher within India. How many of them are reading SLA research? So the teachers are not reading SLA research, and researchers are not teaching the language. There's definitely a gap. If I'm doing a research, I should be able to teach language, and if I'm teaching a language, I should be able to do research. But there is a big gap between SLA researchers and SLA language teachers. Like think of this, what we call in America is something called less commonly taught language. And Hindi, Urdu, Turkish, Persian, Vietnamese, these are all called less commonly taught language. And look how they get the job. They get the job just because you speak that language. And hey, you can come and we can give you on-job training and you can teach, right? A literature is the greatest thing. Any good literature becomes our religion. Look at Ramayana and Mahabharata. A wonderful literature became the part of religion, right? But will literature enough to teach a language? Where you are learning ka, kha, ga, gha, or alif, be, te, pe, te, se, what literature is going to do? Teach Ghalib in the first year Urdu, they'll kick you away. So the point I'm trying to say that literature is great, wonderful. It doesn't help in language teaching. Now the researchers in a syntactician and morphosyntactician, someone like me, who if I do not have SLA research done, or even if my SLA research, will it just focus on day-to-day problem in a language teaching? Probably not. I'm looking at eye tracking device these days, how the human brain is working with the eye tracking sort of a research. Or what is artificial intelligence can be used in terms of acquisition. But because fortunately I'm also a language teacher, so somewhere I'm trying to bridge that gap. Implicit, explicit, I already explained. I'm not gonna spend more time because we're also running a little bit out of time. Implicit is basically not like let's say you have to teach habitual. I'm not gonna go in a classroom and say, look, today we're going to learn present habitual. Implicit way of teaching would be, how about we talk today about everyone's what they do every day, and then we can try to find a common available time to go watch some movie, right? So one teacher explicitly, I'm saying today we are going to learn habitual. On the other side, I'm kind of designing a task that we are all going to talk in English, share our daily life or today's routine, and try to figure out that among 5 of us, what 2 hours we have commonly available when we can go to watch a movie. It's a task. It's the everyday thing that you do when you meet with friends. It has a purpose. It is like a daily life, real life experience. And then you say, let me start. I get up at 4 o'clock. When do you get up, Ravi? So Ravi might say, I get up at 6 o'clock. Okay. I go to school at 8 o'clock. Anna, but I go to school at 10 o'clock. So basically what we are doing, I'm teaching them habitual, but very implicitly. It's very subconscious rather than consciously. Verb need S or ES. Oh, Ravi goes to school at 8 o'clock, but I go to school at 7 o'clock. Amal goes to school at 10 o'clock. Amal goes to school at 10 o'clock. Ravi goes to school at 8 o'clock. I go to school at 7 o'clock. Okay, When do you eat breakfast? When do you eat lunch? And in that way, you are somehow showcasing in a daily activities that this is how they had, but you are never mentioning that today, tomorrow your exam is grammatical errors. Fill in the blanks with the correct form of the verb. Those are exercises. Those are not tasks. And if it is not task, you are not teaching implicitly. If you are giving a grammar exercise, then definitely you are teaching explicitly. And they both have a place in our life, because if I have to study English to pass a railway exam or bank PO exam or UPSC or PT of my UPSC or NET exam English test, of course I need an explicit instruction, but it might not help you in conversation, right? So think what's the goal. So I ask you this question: what do you teach when you teach a language? I hope you have some sort of answer. What is your methods of teaching? Will you teach your language differently? How do you know the way you're teaching is making students acquire the target language? So I hope with showing those two theoretical framework, you have some sort of a thoughts, if not the answer, because we are still struggling. What's the answer? Couple of terminology, people get always confused between methods and approach and theory. Theory is an abstract idea, but the method comes out of theory. So from generative approach, you have a grammar translation method. From behaviorism, you have audio-lingual method. From communicative or socio-culturalist, you have some sort of a task-based. And now you have a communicative approach of language teaching. It comes in both shape. Sometimes people consider it as a theory. Sometimes people consider it as a method. Then out of method, you have a technique. And out of technique, you have a theoretical framework. So for example, those who have exposure to at least in America or Europe foreign language teaching, we know that we have an institution who makes sure that all 10 different universities in America is teaching French. Everybody is trying to follow the similar guideline. But if somebody is trying to teach French in Osmania University, somebody is teaching French in Maulana Azad University, somebody is teaching French at IFLU, how do we know that each French student after 1 year from 3 different universities will have the same proficiency? Because we do not have any umbrella guideline in our country, right? So how do you know that? And then students say, oh, but my teacher is great. But my teacher is great. They are great. Maybe they're giving you some candy or ice cream. I don't know. But what is the accountability of all these teachers, that what you are teaching has to mean something? And if you taught a student for 1 year, some other teacher at other universities have taught another year, or 500 universities in India have taught another year, their proficiency level after 1 year should match at certain place. But that accountability is missing. And that's why we need a framework or some sort. Okay. I'm not going to spend more time here, because this was just the history of pedagogical approaches, how for a long time we have a grammar translation method when people just wanted to translate our Quran and Ramayana and Mahabharata. And then the World War happened and say, oh my God, we cannot interpret Japanese code. So they go audio-lingual method. That's what army method. And then we have, after Second World War, we have some sort of Afghan war happened where you have to talk to each other. So the communicative approach came to way. Then the language become less important. Then the learner become more important. So it also the language pedagogy focused on learner centric. And hence, as I said in the beginning, the language pedagogical approach is very much like politics. Whatever happens, they keep changing the goalpost. So we keep changing our style of teaching. Last but not least, my friend, I'm just gonna finish this, that I like this idea of post methodology or post method pedagogy. And so these are the all language teaching methods. But what Prabhu did, and I'm not gonna play this video, what Prabhu, and I can't say his last name very, Kumara Vendal, some kind of a Vindaloo. Okay, so what he says that for like language teaching is like, it has 3 elements: particularity, practicality, and possibility. If I say today that communicative approach works and grammar translation doesn't work, or audio lingual doesn't work, I would be the fool, because language teaching has to be appropriate methods, that is enactment of those methods that will vary because the context vary. So think of this: if I'm teaching Hindi in America or Urdu in America, my method would be very different if I teach Hindi or Urdu in China or in India or in Iran, right? then all teachers try evaluate approach that is suitable to their context, and their methods will be evolved. So if you are teaching English in India and a student wants to pass the common error exam, you would not be teaching English the way in America, or those whose goal is to communicate, not pass the exam, then their method would be different. And this is all language teaching is very local. What works for you should that's the method you should use, because all these methods that I listed here, this is all informed by the theoretical framework, but none of this work, or everything works, or mixture of these works, but you have to decide what your goal is. So with these long words, I'm just gonna say thank you, and I'm open for question if we have time. I'm sorry if I took more time than I was hoping to take. Oh my God, I took almost 1 hour.
No, but
Thank
it
you.
was
Thank you,
very, very
Rajiv. It's a very
interesting.
wonderful session. And,
Thank you, Anna.
And so many inputs from so many angles. Wonderful talk. Really wonderful
Thank you.
talk.
Thank you,
Dr.
Swathi,
Rajiv.
ma'am. I hope, because, like, it's a big field, and I'm trying to
True,
give at
very
least
true.
2 theoretical framework from top and bottom, so that our friends here, those who are listening, they have some provoked ideas, they're excited. And that's why I said two ends, and everything can come in the middle. And I wanted to have a little bit of pedagogical aspect in that, because lo and behold, not everybody is a researcher or theoretician, but at least we all are language teacher.
True, very true.
Right.
And you have provoked at least one of us, that is me.
Okay, thank you.
I have been working in the area of brain and language. I work with aphasic patients. So a lot of these patients are bilingual. So we
Cool.
have, before joining Osmania University, almost for 10 to 12 years, I have been doing a lot of clinical work. And what you pointed out, I was trying to correlate with the what do you say, patients' performances. So that is what I was trying to correlate, and
Oh,
I
thank
think
you.
there's a huge research area for this particular topic in psycho and neurolinguistics. I think it
Sure.
has a huge scope in that.
Right.
So
We have a student who is working on the current student and from PhD program here. One is working on identity in second language acquisition, that how my identity helps or hinders in learning a second language or foreign language. And another one is working on anxiety, that
wow.
how anxiety affects language acquisition process. So the world has moved from theoretical framework like a generative, but we are Indians. We love Chomsky, Uncle Chomsky, so Uncle Chomsky has guided us through and through. And the Indian setup is all about, oh, English? Like, people would judge me in my village if I say I live in America, and if I speak one ungrammatical sentence, some uncle will say, oh my God, you don't live in America, you make English grammar mistake. Like, duh. So that's all. My PhD has no value if I make one grammatical mistake in English. And some of the rules that cannot be explained. Here is the fun story, Swathi ma'am. We teach in grammar that plural need S, like one book, two books, right? But think about this: one book, two book, but no, it has to be books. One cup, two cup, but no cups. If there's laddu cup, zero cup, then why you still have to have plural S with cups and books? Nobody could explain that grammar to me. And we love grammar, so I'm just giving an example that I still don't know English. I cannot never claim I speak English or I know English or know any language. We all are learning in some way. But thank you. Thank you. Okay. Any questions, concern, thoughts, complaint, compliment, feedback? If we have time, Susheel, and if not, I'm okay to be gone.
Dear participants, if you have any questions, please.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you so much, sir, for delivering such a insightful talk on second and foreign language acquisition. We greatly appreciate your contribution. Thank you so much, sir. The session is now open for questions and answers. I would like to invite Dr. Susheel Kumar sir to kindly moderate the session. Please, sir.
Yeah, dear participants, please, if you have any questions.
I see Baram sir has raised hand. Baram bhai, go ahead if you can unmute and ask question.
Thank you. Thank you for such an exciting discussion. And of course, the attendance all throughout testifies everything. I congratulate all of us that we had a chance to get exposed to different methods. And then the bottom line is everything works and nothing fails, but maybe everything might fail too. So you have to be very, very pragmatic when using that. So that was something that's to be underlined actually. Moving forward, maybe we can have some sequels actually of this discussion, and we can have some follow-up discussions and talks like this where experts like Rajiv Bhai can maybe talk about SLA in particular context, maybe like SLA in the Indian context, the way we learn second language here in India, SLA in the schools, the way we have new education policy, and something like that maybe would be a very, very, beneficial for many, many people, especially the teachers like us who have not only been teaching in the US currently, but also have taught here in India and in different capacities. So I would say that a wonderful seed sowed today, and we need to further have some more fruits coming from this wonderful job done in the beginning. Rajiv, I will have some follow-up discussions one-on-one whenever we get time.
Yes.
Well, thank you so very much.
Thank you.
Thank
And
you.
other participants, please focus on questions if you can, so that we can address more questions answer. To just a request. Go ahead. Sushilana, who is next? You have to.
Hello.
Yeah,
I am Muthuvel Ramamurthy. May I ask a question with our Rajiv?
Yes.
Okay, I am. Okay, sir. Okay. Actually, in the field of this SLA, we see a lot of the problems. But in these sessions, what you have delivered here, it's very helpful and a way forward to address those issues. But finally, I want an answer from you, sir, Mr. Rajiv. What is the still relevance of the Noam Chomsky in the matter of SLA? Could you shed light on that?
Thanks, Anna. Thanks for asking question. And as I said, every theory has its relevance, right? In Chomsky or generative approach, I would not call it a Chomsky because other than Chomsky, there are many other syntactician or linguist. The relevance is what is our end goal, right? So if our end goal is to understand how the language is wired in a human brain, so a culturalist will never be able to answer that. Only generative approach is a field where they can answer that question, that how language is wired in your brain. So interactionist or behaviorist cannot answer that. So it is very easy to criticize. I know that in SLA field currently people are moving from generative to the communicative, but there are a few questions that those other methods or other theoretical approach cannot answer, such as how language is wired, what's the competence, and this is important because one thing, I'm very proud generativist because my PhD is within the framework of generative approach of SLA, and then I jumped to the socioculture and pedagogy and relevance and stuff. One thing I can tell you that generative people are very good at pointing the problem, where exactly the problem is. So the generative approach of SLA can pinpoint the problem, and then the pedagogy, sociocultural, interactionist can answer that question. But we are very good at asking question. We are very good at highlighting where is the problem, and this should be a problem, And now let's go use other method to answer that question. So I think that's the relevance of SLA or generative approach of SLA.
Someone mute yourself. Someone please mute yourself. Yes, any questions?
I see a couple of hands raised. Atre Mukherjee and Mohammed Faisal have raised hands.
Atre Mukherjee, please go ahead.
Yeah, sir,
Yes, please.
Atre, you need to unmute.
Please
hello,
unmute
hello.
yourself.
Yeah, now we can
Am I
hear
audible?
you. Yeah,
Yes,
we
yes.
can hear you.
So, sir, I am actually working in a different framework. So please forgive my biases if you find any. But my question to you is that you are working with the generative framework and you talked about interlanguage where you have particular patterns of two different languages. And often you find you are talking about sometimes the language of the first language becoming more prominent, second language becoming more prominent. Do the generativists have the evidence for the fact that in the mind there is a distinct representation of two different types of languages within which certain patterns exist, or is it a presupposition that we have because we know that okay, this language is English, that language is not English, or that is say Persian? So then we are, from this assumption, we are going into okay, which one is mixing, or do we truly have some computational evidence that there are two types registered in the because we believe in representation in the generativist framework, so there is representation of two different types. This is my question.
Okay, thanks, Atre. And please know that we in SLA you cannot be biased. You can just focus on one field, but SLA is that's why it's applied linguistics, where we all are, and that's why that picture I put, everybody, we all are blind in certain ways. And for us, SLA is that elephant that we all are seeing the different parts of it. So, but that's a great question, Atre. In generative approach, when you're doing a research in a generative approach of SLA, what's the evidence? And there's a great saying that absence of evidence is not the evidence of absence. How do we collect data in when you are doing a kind of SLA research? So we kind of interview, or we give certain kind of a test to the learner. Generally, in generative approach, we are trying to tap the competence. So we have a time test, grammatical and ungrammatical. Read this sentence and tell me whether this sentence is grammatical or ungrammatical, which you can only do to the learners, because native speaker, you can't ask this question. If you ask a native speaker, grammatical and ungrammatical, they are not good at it, but they can say that this sentence is acceptable or unacceptable. All right. Based on what I have known, and so far in my humble experience of doing research or teaching or reading, if you analyze the interlanguage, the language which is spoken by the learner, and then you will find the evidence of that it has elements of the first language, it has the element of the second language, it has the element that does not belong to either language, right? And that's why all these different hypotheses in my talk that I gave you, that there is not one sort of a final answer. Bunch of researchers are throwing one hypothesis, bunch of other professors or researchers are throwing another hypothesis, and that's how the field is growing. So I think I'm not gonna give you one final answer, but when you conduct your own research based on these different hypotheses, when you analyze your interlanguage, and then you can support, oh, but I support these scholars because my finding supports this hypothesis, or I support another scholar because my hypothesis is, or my findings support that hypothesis, or you are going to come up with your own hypothesis, which another 50 scholars will do the research and they might support or reject your hypothesis. So unfortunately, actually, I should not use the word unfortunately. Fortunately, research is, this is why we call it research. This is not an humanities research. It's not the, E is equal to MC square always, or 2 plus 2 is always going to be 4. Humanities, language teaching, and linguistics and languages and language acquisition, 2 and 2 could be 200. We don't know. You make that hypothesis, and if I find my finding supporting your hypothesis, you are A plus. But of course, there is not evidence of anything. Based on the research, people are supporting X or Y hypothesis. I hope I answered your question if I understood it clearly.
Yeah, Rajiv, you have a question from our friend Pallam Das.
Okay, sir.
Pallam Das from IFLU.
Yeah, Rajiv.
Ji, sir.
Yeah, Rajiv, very good to see you. I was your classmate when we were in MPhil.
Yes, I know,
That-
Sahab.
Okay, very nice.
Now you see, I'm glowing because I
Yeah,
heard
yeah.
you. No, the sun is rising from the window. It's more morning. Okay, yes.
Yeah. It was a very illuminating talk.
Thank you.
Yeah, very good on second language acquisition. So I got a very good thing that I got many inputs.
Good.
About in your explanation. Yeah, it is not just your theoretical understanding about what is going on in India generally. Yeah, in India, you already said that something that is the methods that are used in America may not be applicable in India. Yeah, the things, whatever that is applicable, that should be implemented. Yeah, but some things are there that they are being still continued in India in the form of CLT, communicative language teaching. But if people are using different kinds of approaches, but may not be applicable. I feel, because I am there in, I am the witness for that. Yeah.
Yeah. Well.
Yeah. Some things, the mother tongue is maybe influential thing in order to bring into context. In order to bring into context mother tongue, because mother tongue has the clues, many clues, direct clues, rather than giving a context in around the way. Yeah.
Okay.
You're getting my point, I think.
Yeah. Okay. So I'll say a couple of things very quickly, and your all points, Palam Bhai, is all wonderful.
Yeah.
Here is my thought. As I said in my talk already, no method is a great method, and you have to mix the method to hit the target, right? Whatever your goal is. If the goal is communication, you are using CLT. If the goal is to pass exam of English language, your goal is different. But even CLT, which I am also a proponent of that, because the goal here is different. And even in America, in India is a 1.4 billion people, and our government says skilled India and human resources we have to export outside of India. They're not going to ask you habitual question back in America or London or Europe or anywhere you go. They're going to ask you to communicate, right? They're not going to ask you grammar question. Right. So that's why CLT is good, even if I'm making tons of English
it is good, of course. I'm not denying it.
But give me a minute. And then even if my English is not perfect, but heck what, I'm associate professor in a large American university. Am I not good enough? Even if my English is not good, the point I'm trying to say that in Indian context, the CLT, and please know that CLT does not say don't teach grammar. People have maybe one day we can talk about the communicative language approach, and people have a misconception that because you are saying CLT, there should not be grammar. It says, no, you have to have a communicative competence. You have to have a linguistic competence. What CLT is doing, CLT, I gave you the example in the talk that when I'm talking about, let's talk about our daily life and find out 2 hours to watch a movie. There I'm teaching grammar. I'm not teaching explicitly, I'm teaching grammar implicitly. So people
Implicitly.
have sometime misconception of what CLT actually is.
No. It is not so actually what I wanted to say to you.
Mhm.
Actually, CLT, I accept every approach in its own manner. There's no problem. But the thing is, in Indian context, the things are very different. Why people are now bringing mother tongue, the context of mother tongue into the text of teaching?
They are, no, that they are, because, you know, if you think of English teaching in India, different states, like I know that I'm from northern India, people are doing a translation. If they are using grammar translation, they say translate this Hindi sentence in English. I'm sure in Tamil Nadu, they are not saying translate this Hindi sentence. They're saying translate this Tamil sentence or Telugu sentence, right? So they're using L1. And even in a communicative language, even if it is communicative and the conversation is the prime and the communicative competence is a prime, what is stopping a learner, let's say, that what is stopping you to use maybe Uriya as a first language, or me for the Hindi, or Susheel Bhai Telugu as a first language, even if we are communicating, maybe it's not on a piece of paper, but in our head, we all have our first language and we are human who can think. And if I'm learning something new, a Russian language or English or Spanish, we are still comparing this in our head, even if it is not on a paper, right? So you are, I mean, I agree with you. In India is, you know, one thing in America or in the outside India, people say, not only India, South Asia is so complex that you make a statement that is correct and you make equally opposite a statement and that's also correct, right? So our country is linguistically so diverse that, and that's the beauty of SLA and the diversity that you can. That's why I was very proud to add this post method or post pedagogy, that you should not be the slave of one method, that, hey, Dr. Ranjan said communicative works, so hence let's use communicative. No, you use your baby. But as a teacher, we have to have all our ammunitions and weapons, and then see what are the challenges we are facing, what's the goal, what context I'm teaching, where I'm teaching, and then maybe use that mixed methods according to your context, according to your goal.
Right.
With the permission of Rajiv, Rajiv, shall we take some more questions if you are ready?
My day is starting, Susheel Bhai. You guys are hungry. I just finished my one jug of coffee, and I have. So you please, because I know that it's late in India. It's like time to go home. I don't want you to be in trouble with your wife. So take, so you decide what works for the organizer. My day is just starting.
Mohammed, please ask your question. Mohammed, please.
Yes, I'm Nizamuddin, and my question is related to the example sir has given. The question, he gave an example that in America, if you say "How are you," it means just hi. So I want to ask whether that is English or some varieties of English. Like we have many varieties like British English, American English, Indian English. And if that is also a variety of English, then where Indian English stands at global level?
Well, I don't want to open a Pandora box, but I always say that if the democracy is the way of life in this world, Indian English should be the Indian English should be taught everywhere, because we are the largest English speaking country of the world, or English speaker, right? So, Nizamuddin or Mohammed Bhai, that's a good question. And please know that even Hindi, if you will listen to me and Baram here, when we talk in our Hindi, you would not understand if you understand Hindi at all, because we have a very Bihari Hindi, Eastern Hindi style. So yes, you are right. Like when I'm saying in Midwest, another example, when I ran into someone in Midwest in America, where Michigan is, and I say, hey, let's grab lunch sometime. That simply means that I don't have much time to continue this conversation. I am running late, so bye. But if you say that same sentence in East Coast, you might have to unfortunately arrange a lunch with that person because they do take it literally. So the language, whether you call it a dialect or varieties, it also depends on the region, right? So Telugu spoken in coastal Andhra may be different Telugu than the Telangana Telugu. And I remember when I was a student and we have this Telangana movement going on, and there was a linguistic discussion about like how Telugu is different from the coastal Andhra than the Telangana region, which is great.
Rajiv, sorry to
Yeah.
interrupt. You forgot my MPhil thesis was on the same topic, Telangana Telugu.
There you go. So English or Telugu or Hindi, everything is different. Everything has a reason. Everything has a flavor. I live in a part of America where English has a different flavor. We call it here Coca-Cola or any soft drink. We call it pop. Somewhere they call it soda. We are all still talking about same thing. So it's not different English, but when the English that I learned in India and I came to America, let's say I lived in here for 14 years now, right? This is my 14th years in America. And you think my English is good? When I travel to India, sometime I go through London, Heathrow Airport, they don't understand my English. Their English is different English. So we all try to kind of adjust our tone, adjust our jargons, some style, but this is all English.
So one question more. In the beginning, you said you are not very good at using articles, and in between 2 or 3 times, you also said your English is not very good. But throughout your lecture, I could not observe even a single mistake in your spoken English. So why you are saying this? I think you might be means having some message behind these sentences, some hidden meaning. What is that, sir? This is my request to tell you.
Well, you are so kind, sir, to say so. That's I take it as a compliment, but I'm still a not native speaker, and I have a daily reminder because I'm married to an American woman. And sometimes we also have a communication gap because if I say something she doesn't understand and she says something I don't understand. So the hidden message is I have to, my English is challenged from morning when we get up and have a cup of coffee until late night discussion between husband and wife. So I'm reminded 24/7 that I still have a little bit of a communication gap, and I'm still, it's good to remain a student of a language than be the master of the language. So I humbly present to you myself as a student of a language and linguistics and SLA. I never want to be called expert or master or native speaker. If I can say I'm the native speaker of Maghi, I don't have any quality for that. I was just my mom and dad decided to give me birth in Magad area of Bihar. That's all I have. So thanks for, you are so kind. Yeah, you are so kind.
I think Rajiv has answered your question.
So we have, if we have
Kavita, please ask your question. Kavita.
Yeah. Kavita ji, if you can ask your question and you have to unmute yourself. Go ahead, Kavita ji. We can't hear you if you are speaking. So maybe while Kavita is fixing her microphone, maybe Irene, you wanna jump in and.
I request Irene to ask your question. I request Irene. Please ask your question, Irene. Can you hear me, Irene? Please ask your question.
I think they have some sort of audio problem, Anna. They can also type if they have time, you know. Yeah.
Yeah, if you have any questions, please send your questions in the chat box.
Yeah.
And now it's the time to end the session.
Yeah, we have like Melcher Augustine. Maybe we can address one Melcher
Augustia,
question.
Augustia, please.
Yeah, hello, sir. I have no question, but thank you for sharing your knowledge. It was truly an honor to connect with you and learn from your expertise. This webinar was incredibly refreshing, thus giving me a renewed perspective on this webinar. I appreciate your time and dedication to sharing your insight with us. Thank you and good night. Here is
Thank you.
from
Thank you.
Philippines. I have no
Yes.
question.
Thank you. All right, Anna, let's wrap it up then. It's 8:30.
Yes, anyone? Yeah. Thank you, Raju. Thank you for such a wonderful talk from you. And you have talked on the differences between the second and foreign language, focusing on the top down and bottom up and socio-cultural aspects in second and foreign language acquisition, and the gaps between the second language acquisition and research in second language teaching. That's a wonderful session. I think all the participants they have benefited from your lecture, and really we are very happy. From the bottom of my heart, I thank you so much for, in spite of your busyness, you have accepted our invitation, and almost it took 1 month to get your nod for this talk, and I thank you so much. And over to Amal.
Thank you all for your great session and being part of this program. Now I would like to invite Mr. Ravindra Ji to propose the vote of thanks. Mr. Ravindra, are you there?
Yeah, thank you, Amal, for inviting. Yeah, just a second.
Sir?
Yeah, sorry for the technical issue.
Okay.
So I take this opportunity to thank the organizing committee, especially convener, Dr. K. Susheel Kumar of this international webinar, for his immense efforts he has put almost since 2 months in organizing, planning this webinar. And I also thank our speaker for the day, Dr. Rajiv Ranjan ji, for accepting this invitation and joining us and gracing us on this occasion with providing valuable insights on second and foreign language acquisition on this wonderful day. And I also thank all our stalwarts in linguistics who have been contributed immensely. And without expressing our gratitude to them, we will not be able to do justice. So I thank all the professors, from Professor B.H. Krishnamurthy ji and Professor H.S. Anantanarayana, Professor B. Lakshmibai, Professor C. Ramarao, Professor V. Prakasham sir, Professor B. Ramakrishna Reddy sir, who has been recently awarded Padma Shri Awardee, Professor Aditi Mukherjee, Professor J. Venkateshwara Shastri, Professor K. Nagama Reddy, Professor V. Swarajya Lakshmi, Professor D. Vasanta ma'am, Professor A. Usharani ma'am, Professor B. Vijayanarayana sir, Professor K. Ramesh Kumar sir, and Professor Mohammed Ansari sir, and also the present head, Linguistics Department, Dr. C.S. Swathi, and also Dr. K. Susheel Kumar sir, Chairperson, Board of Studies, and Dr. K. Balu Naik sir, who is also Vice Principal, Osmania University College of Arts and Social Sciences, and all the students, scholars, and staff of the department, and also non-teaching staff of the college, and also the college management for providing the infrastructure and all the resources for which we are able to organize this webinar. And also a special thanks to all the participants, because we have around 1,500 registrations from across the world, and we have been able to circulate this information to all the major linguistic groups across the world. And also we have received responses from more than 40 countries. And this is one of the greatest milestone. I'm happy on behalf of the department, and a special thanks to Rajiv Ranjan ji, that without you, definitely it couldn't have been possible, along with Dr. K. Susheel Kumar ji. The first credit goes to both of you, and along with the team. Because of them and all our professors who have blessed us. And I thank all the organizing committee members, and especially Dr. Balu Naik sir, who has been always there with us, supporting us, and our staff, B. Shekhar, S. Mallesh, and our librarian, K. Srinivasulu, and our internet and other technical team in college, Mr. Sai, Mr. Santosh, and also our host for the day, Amal, and also her associates, Marjan, Sannaroth, and everyone, each and everyone. Especially, I cannot take each and every participant name, but also my special gratitude to all the participants who have joined us in this webinar and making it a grand success. Once again, I express my heartfelt gratitude to Rajiv Ranjan ji for gracing us on this occasion. And thank you. Over to you, Amal.
Thank you, Mr. Ravindra, for proposing vote of thanks. Thank you so much. Now I would like to invite our convener of this webinar, Dr. Susheel Kumar sir, to officially close the webinar. Please, sir.
Yes, thank you, Amal. Now it's time to close the session. It's almost 6:30. So now I would like to close the session. Thank you, Rajiv Ranjan ji. On behalf of the Department of Linguistics, I would like to thank you for accepting our invitation and for a wonderful talk. We have received 1,500 plus registrations across the countries for this international webinar, and I hope the participants have benefited with the talk. Once again, I thank everyone for proactive participating in this webinar and making it as a grand success. We look forward for your presence in our upcoming programs. Thank you, one and all.
Yeah. Thanks, Anna. Thanks, everyone. And thanks for giving me the platform. I hope I contributed something positive in everyone's kind of a discussion. And it's just an honor, Susheel bhai, to be an interactor, just to even see you virtually.
Even we didn't think that we will get this overwhelming response from the participants, and it has a wide coverage actually. And 136 countries is not a simple thing. Right. Because of Rajiv, that they have given such a response, I think.
And in future, if you need me for anything, please always, and I'm always there to help my friends and to connect with the Indian community too. So thanks everybody. Thanks for hearing, listening to me, and patiently listening to me. And you have a wonderful evening. I'm just going to log out, Sushilana, now.
Yeah. Thank you so
Okay.
much. And
Bye.
dear participants, that your certificate will be posted to your mail address. So please collect your e-certificate and please fill the feedback form and get the certificate in your email. Thank you, one and all. Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir.